Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by Sodastick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. Brandon Mileski and Pat Micheletti, as always, brought to you by Sodastick.com. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Brandon. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Your alma mater making some news this week. They named a new assistant coach after Garrett Raboyne left for the head coach position at Augustana, and he joins us now, Steve Miller, as joining Beyond the Pod for the first time. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Nice to meet you. How did this entire process with you and Bob begin? How did the discussions go, and what made you decide to become the new assistant coach at the University of Minnesota?
Wow, there's a lot of questions in there. Try to answer it in less than 15 minutes. Obviously, me and Bob are as close can be. Having worked for Coach Sodastick at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and in the early '90s. And did some pretty cool stuff there. And we've stayed together. We stayed close ever since. Bob was in my wedding in '97. It's someone that, if I'm not talking to my family, I'm talking to Bob. That's what my wife always says. He reached out to myself and Coach Rollick in early June, and we started talking about the position. And then more and more talking to Bob, talking to my family, it seemed like if the job was going to be offered to me, I felt that I was going to take it. And obviously I was fully transparent with Coach Rollick and that. A lot of things came into play. Obviously, first and foremost, it's the University of Minnesota, a great academic institution. It's Gopher hockey. I mean, the history, the tradition, the success. I mean, I'm 57 years old, and you still have dream jobs, I guess. I mean, and again, when you're younger, everything's a dream, but all of a sudden it's Bob making that call, and you're like, it's University of Minnesota hockey program, and it's it speaks for itself. And then you throw in the dynamic of the family. My son's gonna be playing at St. Thomas next year.
Right.
I won't be able to see him play, but Mom will. So, but I'll be there. Be there for him. We both will be there for him. And then some other some other things too. With me being 3 hours away from my dad and my brother. Unfortunately, lost my dad, mom and sister, both in their 50s. So Dad's getting up there, but again, there's a lot of different dynamics in play. Relationship with Bob, University of Minnesota, watching Cole play, family, and with talking to Heidi and talking to my youngest Connor, who will stay back and finish in Columbus this year, senior year in high school, and he's in a great position with his AAA team, the Ohio Junior Blue Jackets. Just seems right. I'm humbled. I'm honored. I mean, it's surreal. It really is.
All right, I'm gonna hit you with the hard question now. Early in this, I have so many for you, but you've been part of championships at the junior level, at the college level, and people don't understand how hard it is to win a title. I don't care if it's a Little League championship or a gold medal at the junior at the nationals or an NCAA. What and you've been with different teams winning it. Can you pinpoint what it is that gets a team to win a national championship? That dynamic or culture or whatever it is?
Well, I think, again, you always want to look to a steady hand at the top. It starts with the head coach and then filters down through the assistants and the rest of the staff. But I just look at the teams that were able to reach the top that I've been fortunate to be part of. And I mean, the leadership at the top with the guys in the room, their faith and belief in themselves and their teammates and your staff. Now, with that being said, I've coached one of the greatest teams I ever coached. Didn't make the Frozen Four. It was again, we were the number 1 seed in the West. It was 2002. It's one of the greatest teams I've ever been affiliated with. That unfortunately, we had great leadership with Brian Vines and our senior class, and we had a lead against Michigan going to the third, and we just come off beating Minnesota, the WCHA Final Five with Jordan and that great team that they had, and Grant, and they actually went on to win the championship a couple weeks later when they beat Maine. So again, breaks are part of it. I mean, you always got to take advantage of your breaks. Like the 04 team, we took advantage of every break that was put in front of us. But I think, Pat, to try to break it down in the simplest terms is, that steadiness at the top, from the coach, from the head coach, from the assistant coaches, from the staff, and then that leadership in the room, and how those two things to me are paramount to having success as a program, and then putting yourself in a position to win a championship. Now, in simple terms, whoever's got the best goalies usually got a chance to win the
Right.
Steve, for Gopher fans that aren't super familiar with you, how would you describe your coaching style, and what's going to be your role on the staff?
Well, I remember going back. I was a forward in college. I always used to joke I was a power forward that weighed 135 pounds. It wasn't a big market for those guys, but I always thought I had a pretty good brain about the game. Unfortunately, I played a little too hyper in my college career, and as you become older, you're still coaching, but you're playing hockey with the guys, whether it be after practice and stuff, and also the game starts slowing down for you. You realize, God, I wish I would have done this in my college career. But I think
you and me both.
Yeah, no doubt, right? I think I've coached the D. I've done that ever since I started working with Coach Sodastick at Miami, when he brought me into the office and he asked me, who do you want to work with? I said, well, I'm a forward. I've worked with forwards at St. Mary's. I would love to work with the forwards here at Miami. And George said, that's great. You'll be working with the defenseman. So from that point on, I've worked with the defenseman, and obviously never played the position. And so now you got to start doing research, and now you got to start talking to the guys, your players on your team. Now you got to start asking what they see, how they feel. Now you're watching NHL games, and you're getting a feeling, how they position themselves when the puck is leaving the offensive zone, how they played battles in the D zone, how they transition pucks. And so then you start becoming even that much more. I always thought I was a student of the game growing up. Now you have to become that much more of a student of the game. So I love working with defensemen. It's to me, I always joke, those the cheating forwards, we got to protect the most important player on the ice, the goalie. I always laugh and have fun with the guys. But I guess if coaching style is, I want my door is always open. I want, what I mean, I don't want to ever feel like I'm talking down to the guys. It's collaboration, it's personal connection. Those are the most important things for me and my coaching style, because I think at the end of the day, that gets the most out of the player when they feel like you're in the trenches with them. I mean, I remember one thing that George would always say is, I want you guys are my sergeants. You got to be in the fray with the guys. I'm the general. I've got to stay away from it. You guys, you and Seth or Derek Lalonde, or David Lassan, with Bobby, you know what I mean? Like with JB Bittner at Ohio State, Chris May out of Providence, you guys got to be connected to those guys. And so to me, the personal relationships are so important of helping you continue to develop your student athletes, not only away from the rink, and obviously on the rink. And that's what I like. That's my big focus. That personal connection is so important. So important.
Well, let's stay with the D. you are inheriting a decor that I don't think people would argue with me very much about. That was probably one of the best in the nation a year ago, and pretty much everyone is returning except for Brinkman. Um, that's a nice situation to walk into.
Oh yeah, and again, obviously, I have a connection to some of the guys that I've
Right.
coached in World Juniors with Jackson, Logan, and Brock.
Yeah.
I know I haven't met Cal, but I know Cal because Cal played with Cole in Sioux Falls
Yep.
this past year before Cal got traded to Chicago. No, it's the younger Middlestat.
Yep.
Obviously,
Kester.
Kester, who's a very good player. They're all great players. You know what I mean? I don't want to leave any. Again, I don't want to feel like I'm leaving anybody out. I know Carl Fish has done a great job for.
Yeah.
And you know, what I mean, like, it's exciting stuff to get a chance to work with this defensive core, and I look forward to it.
The roster in general, obviously you coach against this team, and there's some turnover, and you got some new guys coming in. But the roster in general, did you kind of look at this from afar and say that's a team that could win the national championship next year?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think all of us. I mean, like, obviously, I'm leaving a great situation. Like, you're leaving a great situation in Ohio State. With Jakub Delvish is arguably, he might arguably be the best goalie in college hockey.
Right.
Mason Lorai, Jake Wise, Goose Westland. We have a great group of players at Ohio State that, when we get done with their spring, we're putting our roster together. We look at it and say, hey, this team can be there at the end. And obviously, Minnesota, you look at their roster, this team could be at the end. I mean, like, those are exciting things as a coach when you look at that and you start thinking about that. But that, to me, those are always the dream goals, to win a national championship. What do we have to do starting today to put ourselves in a position to win a national championship? Mm-hmm. What do we have to do? How are we getting better? How is the team getting better? How are individuals getting better? That, to me, then has to be, the short-term goals. That's the focus now. That's the focus.
I'm going to move back to your career a little bit. And you were at Miami, you were at Providence, you were at Denver, and then you had a stop in Colorado Springs with our good friend, Frank Serratori, director of hockey ops there, if I'm correct. What was it like working with Frank? And I mean, to me, he's the ambassador of hockey in general. What was it like working with Frank?
It was unbelievable. His energy that he brought to the rink every day, working with Joe and Andy, the cadets. I mean, obviously the rest of the support staff there. Frank has an unbelievable feel for the pulse of the team. I remember we practiced, like, there was never a set practice time because Frank would want to gauge the guys leaving lunch and coming to the locker room. And, like, there might be a group of them napping right away just because of what they went through that day. So we might start practice at 3:30. We might start at 3:45. We might start at 4. It was all coach feeling the pulse of the team and just his energy that he brings to the room. And then he would give so much to to Joe and Andy about, hey, okay, what are we doing today for practice, guys? What are we doing? And just to be around that every day, and then just see what the cadets brought and their sacrifice and their determination.
Right.
And, where a Matt Serratori, shot with 30 seconds left to go in the game, tying Harvard and going to overtime against Harvard to get to the Frozen Four. It was pretty special group of players. Again, obviously committed to defending our country, but then on top of it, playing a Division I sport at the highest level. And, when I left Providence to come back home to Heidi and the kids, I didn't have a job. People were asking, what are you going to do? I go, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Me and Heidi will figure it out together. And then all of a sudden I saw something hit my computer that, Frank was looking for a director of hockey operations for the first time. And I called him, and I remember making the phone call, and I go, "Hey, coach, it's Killer." And obviously, we'd known each other from all the Denver and Air Force battles over the years. And all of a sudden, I think you'd be interested in coming working for you. And all of a sudden, the phone just went silent. Coach, you there? Coach. So, and he's like, "You're kidding me." I said, "No, let's talk. Let's start a dialogue." And so he always joked around, "You're not my director of hockey operations. You're my director of hockey." So we had a good time, great time. It was a great experience, a great 2 years, that's for sure.
Steve, yeah. I look at your resume and the experience and how long you've been coaching and how often you've won, and hearing people talk about you and how much respect they have for you. It looks like you have a resume of someone who could be a head coach. So have you ever had a desire to be a head coach at the Division I level?
Yeah. I mean, but again, that doesn't motivate. That's not what drives or motivates. I've said this to people before. That's not what drives or motivates me. I mean, my dad worked in corporate America, and he always gave me a few life lessons on, work in the real world. And he said, number one, always take care of your boss. And number two, don't be too worried. Don't be too concerned about moving up as fast as you can in the ranks. Because he had seen people who'd done that, and all of a sudden they've lost their job, never to come back into corporate or that corporation, or just struggle to make their next move. So I guess the biggest thing, my biggest motivation is always take care of your boss, and things will take care of themselves. I've always said, if I was an assistant coach the rest of my career, I'd be fine with that. I mean, again, I've always looked at myself as a sergeant. I really have. I mean, if I get the promotion to a full bird colonel, I'll take it. But I don't know if I'm a general. So I always joked about that with Guaz. So it's just hockey has done so much for me. Allowed me to meet my wife. It's allowed me to do some, to be in part of a game that I think is the greatest game in the world. And in all reality, Brendan, I haven't worked a day in my life. I don't look at it that way. And hockey owes me nothing, because it's given me everything. And I'd love to be a head coach, but that's not what motivates me. What motivates me is the daily grind, the competition, competing, getting a group of young guys to play together, to sacrifice, to make personal sacrifices with their game, chasing the ultimate goal, and that's winning the last game of the year.
You help me out here. Is it 5 years in a row, or 6 years in a row, or 7? You have been part of the U.S. junior national team. Every year they call you back, no matter who the coach is, whether it be Bob or, the list goes on that you've coached under. What's that experience been like, going to that tournament every year? The best tournament, in my opinion, in the world.
Is unbelievable. I mean, again, obviously I've been fortunate to work for Bob for the first two, and then that rolled into, it was going to be David Quinn, and all of a sudden David Quinn gets hired by the Rangers. So Hasty took over, and then did it with Mike, and then did it with Sandy, and then fortunate enough to do it with Nate during the COVID bubble. And then we're going back in a couple weeks to replay the tournament from Christmas, and July 25th we'll report to Plymouth. But when I'm sitting on my rocking chair, hopefully when I'm, much older, and I look back on my coaching career, obviously the stuff that will always stay with you is your relationships with all the players you coached in those college experiences that you had, all those experiences. But then the second part of that will be coaching at this tournament, the stress, the quality of the player. It's just, it's almost sometimes you're watching the games in awe, but you got to remember that, hey, you got to make sure you got the next guys up. You know what I mean? So we don't get too many men on the ice.
Yeah.
The ability of the speed of the game, the poise, the skill, the guys who take the extra second compared to the guys who don't take the extra second to make a play. And then the stakes. Like, this isn't like who's going to go out there to prove who's tough that day.
Yeah.
Because if you want to prove that you're tough that day, that might be the penalty you take that allows the power play goal to be scored against you that costs you the game. Like, everyone's got – it doesn't matter if you're playing the team that's struggling in the tournament or the best team in the tournament. Everyone's power play is good because everyone's power plays has guys on who are going to be playing the National Hockey League. Right. One of the most stressful moments for us in Vancouver, and you can go back and watch it. I think I have it on my video clips saved, is the 2-minute power play that we have to kill at the end of the second period that goes into the third, where the puck never left our zone. And Phil Kemp ended up pulling a puck off the crease. Kravtsov came and did something in the slot. Kaprizov's done it too. That's where we saw it the first time, where he kind of gets the hash marks. I don't know if you've noticed that pattern, Brendan. Like, he kind of turns himself where he's looking outside the zone, but his hands are right there, and they make that little slip pass in there. He gets it, just shoots it. Yeah. And it was as stressful can be. And we were fortunate to win that game, and again had a great game against Finland that just came up a little short. But it is so hard to medal. It is the games are like a championship game in itself, and it doesn't matter if it's the first game of the tournament, last game of the tournament. The intensity is all the same. And again, I to think that I'm blessed, man. I am blessed. I mean, 6 years in a row to be able to be in that position, to be with the team, to do different things with the team, whether it be working with the PK, working with the D, being the eye in the sky, doing the pre-scouts. It's been an unbelievable experience, and I'm so thankful for the coaches that have entrusted me to be part of it, and USA Hockey for the great opportunity.
Well, I tell you what, I was a little nervous about, getting you on the show and everything. I didn't know if you were mad at me from our conversation at Christmas time, if you recall, when I was promoting a certain player that will be unnamed in this, and I was talking your ear off about adding this player to the team. Thank God you did, because he's a heck of a player. I think you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. But going into this tournament, you have to finish it off in August. Will there be? Is it going to be the same team, or will we see different faces, or is that yet to be determined?
Well, it won't be the same team. And then obviously there will be different faces. Jake Sanderson, Matty Beniers, and Drew Comesso are not playing. We got news yesterday that another young man, unfortunately, has to have surgery. So there's a lot of moving parts. And we have a call today at 2:00 with Coach Lehman and the rest of the staff. There's a lot of moving parts. I mean, Coach Pecknold will be running his camp. We'll be running our camp. And then there'll be guys going back and forth between the two camps. So it's definitely a unique situation. This has never happened before, obviously. And so we're going to try. I know that Coach Lehman will be super organized and will be in a good position to take the best group north to Edmonton.
All right, final question for you, Steve. You mentioned earlier that your son has committed to the University of St. Thomas. Cole, I am a St. Thomas alum, so can you give me a scouting report on your own son?
A scouting report. Cole plays hard. He competes. He's competitive. He brings it to the rink every day. I mean, he wears it on his sleeve. He wants to block shots. He wants to win games. He wants to win. I think he's a good. I think one of his best strengths with the puck is he's really good at breaking pucks out. That's one of his. He doesn't feel flustered when people are chasing him into the corner, and he's always showed pretty good poise and smarts at finding the right breakout option. So those are his strengths. And again, I got to be a little bit of a coach. So being the coach, no, I'm just kidding. I know that one thing that he wants to do is continue to improve his offensive blue line play and be a little bit more of a factor offensively in the game. So,
Steve, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Nice to meet you, and I'm sure we'll talk to you moving forward.
Brandon, nice meeting you. Pat, it's always great seeing you. Thanks a lot.
Talk soon, Killer. Yep.
We'll see you guys soon.
All right,
Yep.
thanks. Steve
Sounds
Miller,
great.
he's the new assistant coach for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Before I chat with you, Pat, I want to talk about Sodastick.com. Go to Sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports inspired goods. If you haven't seen the stuff yet, you got to check it out. I'm wearing one of my favorite designs right now, the 1980 Miracle T-shirt. All their apparel screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You'll love it. We're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. That is Sodastick.com, original Minnesota sports inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off your next order. And Pat, we are taping this the day before the NHL Draft, and
yes,
I'm kind of looking at this as kind of a pretty pivotal moment in Minnesota hockey getting back to what it once was, Pat. Because let's face it, we know the Gophers weren't kind of the show in this state anymore, with UMD emerging and St. Cloud and Mankato. And I thought Minnesota had a great season, made it to the Frozen Four. And now I look at this upcoming draft, which takes place tomorrow. You have 3 Gopher commits that could go in the first round, including Logan Cooley, who could be in the top 3. You've got another that could be in the top half of the second round. You might have 4 Gopher commits in the top 50 of this draft tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the other schools, because those schools overtook Minnesota for quite some time, to be quite honest. And
yeah,
and Minnesota's finally finding their footing again. And everybody recruits differently, and just because you get the cream of the crop does not automatically mean you're going to win it, as we know. And so it's crazy. We're going to have a lot of guys drafted out of Minnesota this week or starting tomorrow. And you mentioned the Gophers, and you mentioned a kid going in the top 3, Logan Cooley. I think everyone's holding their breath to see who takes him and if they want to sign him and bring him in right away. Hopefully not for the Gophers' sake, but it's going to be a fun couple days.
Jimmy Snuggerud out of Chaska, he might go in the first round as well. He might be available actually when the Wild have their 2 picks at 19 and 24.
Yep.
I probably should have researched this ahead of time, Pat, but did you ever cross paths with his dad? Did you ever play against him? What's kind of the age difference between you two?
Well, I will tell you, I requested him on my line when he was a freshman. And David, and you'll see this in his son, one of the smartest players I've played with in the game. And, he had a great career with the Buffalo Sabres and such, but just a really, really, really smart player. And, I just knew by watching him. I said, I got it. I went to Woog. I said, if you're moving guys around a little bit, why don't you try Snuggie, with us, with me and Paul Broughton that year. And it worked out. We had a great time, great kid, great family, and great addition to Minnesota. And his son is really a good player. He's really improved. He's always been a smart player, but he's improved his skating, and he's a little bit faster now, and certainly will go in the first round.
Yeah, so the other Gopher commits, Ryan Chesley, might go towards the end of the first round, and
good player.
Sam Rinzel, also of Chaska. They're all becoming a hockey factory all of a sudden there in Chaska. He might go, probably he's projected to be probably top half of the second round. A couple other NHL notes for you, Pat. St. Paul, Cretin-Durham Hall's own Ryan McDonagh traded from the Tampa Bay Lightning to the Nashville Predators. Obviously, we knew at some point this cap crunch was gonna have a huge effect on Tampa Bay. But I've always liked Ryan McDonagh as a player. Going back to watching him in the state tournament in Cretin and then playing for the New York Rangers, and I thought he was a huge addition to the Tampa Bay Lightning during their Stanley Cup run and their success during that dynasty. But I almost look at Tampa Bay and go, it's probably a great job of letting McDonagh go. As hard of a decision as that is, as important as he's been to that franchise, to let him go kind of before maybe he falls off the cliff a little bit.
Right. He's 33 years old. And this is a guy who blocks a lot of shots. Yeah. So his body and he sacrifices not only during the playoffs, but during the regular season. And he's a really good leader. I was I half jokingly tweeted out, well, if you're going to trade him, how about Tampa pick up half his salary and send him home? I think he's that good of a leader, of a player. Yeah, you know what? He is getting at the tail end of his career, and he's making a lot of money, and that's what happens when you win 2 championships in a row, and guys earn their salaries and get bumps, and that's where Tampa is right now. I mean, listen, I really don't think Minnesota wanted to trade Kevin Fiala, but they didn't have a choice. There's just no room, and so, but Nashville's getting a pretty good defenseman still with something in the tank with Ryan McDonagh.
The power in the Western Conference, the Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche, kind of just a small move the other day. They signed Andrew Cogliano to a 1-year deal, a little over $1 million. And Pat, Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar and a lot of those guys get all the headlines, and deservedly so. And they're some of the best players, and if not the best players in the National Hockey League. But I thought Colorado did a great job, Joe Sakic, of kind of filling out the depth pieces of that lineup. And I always liked Cogliano when he was in Anaheim. I think he's a good two-way forward. He kills penalties for you. I like the addition of Helm on that. I thought their fourth line with Cogliano and Helm was pretty darn good. And kind of some of the under the radar moves by Joe Sakic to completely make that team as dominant as it was.
And he'll do it again. I mean, he's got some finagling to do, right? He's got Kadri, who's a free agent. I don't think that they're going to be able to bring him back. They have Nishushkin, who they got for nothing from Dallas, and he has a monster year, and he has a monster playoff. Now, can he go somewhere and be the guy? And he's probably going to get overpaid, but more than likely he's not going to be back. But they've got a pretty good group of kids in there, and with the Colorado Eagles, their American League team, and there's rumors that they're in on Marc-Andre Fleury, because I believe Kemper's a free agent also.
He is, yes.
Okay, and so
the longer this goes on with Fleury, the more concerned I am that he's not coming back.
I agree with you 100%. But they have their core, and McKinnon's going to have to get paid. So, as long as they have their core players, Sakic does a phenomenal job, just like you said, of finding those guys that fit a role, that will accept a role, and they're not going to just be happy with one cup. They want to win it again next year.
All right, Pat, as always, we finish with some stick taps, and I have a bunch of stick taps today. So I'm gonna allow you to go first in case I don't want to snipe you ahead of yours, given I have so many.
No, mine it goes back to the North Star years, and it's gonna go to a man who passed away the other day, Jack Gordon, and people back in the day will remember Jack as the general manager and coach of the Minnesota North Stars in the early years, and was a wonderful human being, and passed away at the age of 93, I believe it was. So my stick tap is to him and to all the North Star fans who remember him.
All right, I got 3 stick taps, Pat. It's a busy one this week. Mike Greer was named the GM for the San Jose Sharks. He becomes the first black general manager in the 100-plus year history of the National Hockey League. Glad to see some progress being made there. Also being some progress on the gender side as well. Jessica Campbell became the first ever woman assistant coach in the AHL. She was hired by the Coachella Valley Firebirds. So great to see that. And then my final one, he hasn't been in the league for a while, but he officially announced his retirement in the past week. Pavel Datsyuk, one of the greatest puck handlers I've ever seen, officially announced his retirement from the National Hockey League.
You couldn't have picked 3 better. That's perfect. And
pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I tell you what, you are on your game today. So I agree with every one of them.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a great week, Brandon. Thanks.
All right. He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod, as always, brought to you by Sodastick.com. Make sure you subscribe on the KFN YouTube channel so you can watch all of the episodes of Beyond the Pod. You can also listen to it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod. Bye.